it feels like the only reason to buy an Intel CPU is if you really like the color blue. You'd think, multi-bajillion dollar company, they're Intel, they know how to make a processor. But this whole situation, I ain't sure if they do. Intel CPUs are failing at an alarming rate. So this whole situation started out and people's Intel CPUs are kind of crap in the bed. People were thinking that it's because these processors draw so much power. It is backed up by the data. This is Gamers Nexus's data here. And they found that the 13900K drew 295 watts. And they have seen, these are Threadripper CPUs. These are 64 core CPUs, so ignore these ones up. One of the big things, these CPUs draw so much power. Could it lead to the CPU cooking itself to death, which is what we're seeing? It could also result in, how do you cool this thing? You can see a small air cooler on the 13900K up here. Guys, this is at like 100 degrees. You could boil water on this CPU, which actually would probably cool it better than this cooler would. A freaking 360 millimeter water cooler is only keeping it at 89 degrees at 50% fan speed. When it runs this hot, when it draws this much power, how do you cool it? How do you keep your computer quiet? It just isn't really reasonable for a lot of people. Because these CPUs are running so hot, basically they're like, hey, motherboard makers, go ahead and make something that is less power hungry, which is weird that the other power profiles here are called extreme or performance. Isn't that like the same thing? Yeah, it ended up basically making Intel CPUs run a little bit not as fast. So we go here like at the very beginning when all this was going down, this was back in April. The Asus Intel baseline profile, which is supposed to be like a reasonable wattage, is 207 FPS, whereas at default power limits here is at 209 FPS. And on the Gigabyte baseline profile, it is at 187 versus the 209 that it was supposed to be before. You can see in some different games you get different results. Like here in Starfield, it can be a little bit more extreme. You're dropping your FPS from 141 to 132. And this basically leads the consumer in a really bad situation. They advertise the power on their CPUs to be at 4,000 watts. That's literally how it's programmed in the motherboards, to run the CPUs at 4,000 watts. And then the CPUs just, cut that off. You buy a CPU and you expect performance like this. That's what's advertised. This is literally what Intel advertises. But in the end of the day, having to do this because their CPUs were running too hot. Did they give you any kind of refund for this? No. Did they rebate you for this? No. Is there a recall for this? No. They just said, hey, motherboard makers, do this now, and we basically just false advertised our products at the start. And I can't blame people for being mad at the whole situation. It might be a small difference in performance in your games, but it's something that you paid for. I don't know. There could be like a class action lawsuit for this. I have no clue what's going to happen in the long term, but I don't like the situation that's in, and I don't think a lot of people should be happy with this either. But what goes even deeper is how Intel operates with the motherboard maker. And I think a comment here on the Hardware Unboxed video really puts it well. Intel motherboard manufacturers, please make sure we win in benchmarks. Then also Intel, motherboards manufacturers are causing the crashes on your systems by running out of spec. This is more of a business to business thing, but Intel is being extremely two-faced here. Basically, they want their CPUs to perform well in benchmarks. They want the motherboard manufacturers to allow the CPUs to boost up as high and as fast and as hot as they possibly can, just so Intel can get a little bit more performance out of their CPUs, advertise that performance. But they don't actually tell the motherboard manufacturers, I was about to say another word, this isn't officially endorsed by Intel, but Intel also is subtly never told them they can't do this, and it would be in a motherboard maker's worst interest to not have CPUs perform good on their platform. Kinda are forced to just make them run as hot as they possibly can. Intel is being extremely two-faced. Basically, they're avoiding blame. But this whole situation goes so much deeper than just power and heat. It's bad, guys. It is really bad. More information has come out. It's not just consumers who have, not cooled their processors properly or playing weird games and there's fringe cases or something like that. No, this is a super widespread issue to the businesses and the data centers that use Intel CPUs in them. Level 1 Techs, I know this is the Gamers Nexus video where he kind of caught up with them, but Level 1 Tech, he did some investigating. All this information has come out and it's been like, it's the power of the CPU that is causing issues. It's this here that's causing issues. Looking into servers. And servers are very conservative and they don't run CPUs at super high power. They don't run CPUs with really high memory clocks or anything like that. Servers are trying to achieve the best stability on their systems possible because these systems, they run for 24 hours, 7 days a week, 8 days a week. And not only did Wendell find that gamers, just normal gamers, were having issues with CPUs, like there is a correlation to Intel CPUs having issues. Another level to it is those businesses, when some of them have come out and said that there is a nearly 100% failure rate on Intel servers. What? You can't make a product and 100% of them fail. Let's look a little bit more deeper into this. So this is a company called Alderon Games or Alderon, whatever. But they make a multiplayer dinosaur survival game called Path of Titans. At least it's not Ark Survival Evolved, okay? Basically, they're having several problems with Intel stability on their CPUs. This is a little bit of an interesting side note. A lot of these companies that run game servers, basically they're hosting multiplayer servers that people can play together with friends or whatever you end up doing. Companies actually use Intel consumer grade CPUs, but run them on server grade motherboards. The reason they use consumer grade CPUs, I think it's kind of obvious because they're a lot cheaper and they also have really high like core clocks. Consumers usually care about single core performance, and that's actually really useful for game servers because high core clock means just, you know, faster servers and all that stuff. It just works out. Single core performance is better for games. What they said is that they're having 5 main areas of failure. End customers. Thousands of crashes on Intel 13th and 14th gen CPUs in our crash reporting tools. Basically, people were playing the game, just playing the game on their Intel system. I've heard reports where people will get multiple crashes in a span of hours. If they're using an Intel CPU and it's crashing all the time, you're just gonna not play the game anymore. And that means that these game companies, it's a multiplayer game, bad for the company. It makes them look bad. Maybe people are gonna want refunds. Official dedicated game servers experiencing constant crashes, taking entire servers down. Development team, developers using these CPUs face frequent instability. Sorry, I don't know how to read. While building and working on the game, this could also cause SSD and memory corruption. Game server providers hosting community servers with persistent crashing issues. Benchmarking tools, decompression, and memory tests unrelated to Path of Titans also fail. So basically, any situation that this company has seen or had any contact with Intel CPUs 13th and 14th gen, they can't trust them. It said over the last 3 to 4 months, we have observed that CPUs initially working well deteriorate over time, eventually failing. So just like with the power that we're talking about before, maybe the silicon in the CPUs are actually degrading. We don't know if this is a source issue. There isn't really a confirmed problem that is out there right now. It said the failure rate we have observed on our own testing is nearly 100%, indicating it's only a matter of time before affected CPUs fail. This issue is gaining attention from news outlets and has been noted by Fortnite and Rad Game Tools. Users are also receiving misleading error message of running out of video driver memory despite having way more than enough memory. Level 1 Techs actually did a little bit of an investigation on this. So there's crash reports. GPUs have over 20 gigabytes of VRAM, and there's no way that the game could ever use more than 20 gigabytes of VRAM, but is reporting that you run out of VRAM on your GPU. This was actually a CPU problem, but showing up like a GPU problem. It's a mess. It's a mess. And it almost seems like, I don't think Intel did that specifically, but like it almost feels like Intel is shifting the blame on that too. What this company has said is the actions they're taking to prevent further harm to our game, we are implementing the following measures. Again, if this affects game, it affects the way that people experience the game. A lot of people don't know what's happening and they're gonna blame it on the game and they're not gonna wanna play the game. And this could cost the company thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. We are swapping out all of our servers to AMD. which experienced 100 times fewer crashes compared to Intel CPUs that were found to be defective, which is crazy. Basically, all of the data center people that provide the servers or, will handle this stuff for these companies that make the games, Intel system is like $1,000 in support fees, and then the AMD system's like $200. These AMD systems are failing way less, so it costs less support, tinkering, or troubleshooting fees from the actual company. Kind of a nod to buy the AMD system because it is a lot more affordable and you're gonna have less problems with it. And hosting recommendations. We advise anyone hosting Path of Titan servers or selling game servers to avoid purchasing or using 13th or 14th gen CPUs. They literally tell you just don't use them. They're garbage. No, they didn't say they're garbage, but that's what they're implying, okay? And in-game notifications, we're adding a pop-up message in-game, which is probably a good thing, to inform users with these processors about the issue. Many users are currently unaware of why their game is crashing and what they can do about it. And I think this is a good step in the right direction. At least inform people on what's happening in your computer if you are having these issues. And don't blame it on the game because it's not the game's fault. This is Intel's fault. Their CPUs, for whatever reason, are dying. There is some rumor, well, not dying, but they could be dying pretty significantly. It seems like they're degrading over time. There is some theories that seem to be shifting around people that are way more knowledgeable and have more insider info on the situation than I do. Because Gamers Nexus, Steve is hinting towards that they have a little tip.
On our side, I only recently received a tip that seems pretty credible. We're gonna see what we can do.
It's an interesting explanation.
Yeah, it would take some time to really thoroughly work through, but it is something we're capable of.
Behind the scenes that they're looking into and something they might be able to prove that might be the source of the issue. I'm just editing it here, and another possible explanation that I found is it might be hyper-threading on Intel's newest CPUs that are actually making them have these failures. This isn't confirmed or anything like that, but it could be a possible thing because it might line up with the next generation of Intel CPUs intentionally taking away hyper-threading. Intel says it's for, space-saving concerns as well in their CPUs so they can fit more die area, but at the same time, is hyper-threading causing an issue? Maybe this will be it. We'll see. But of all things, Intel hasn't addressed this to the community. Anybody who's bought their processors their CPUs could literally be dying. Every 13th and 14th gen CPU that's out there could slowly just be dying. We don't have any info on Intel that working on it. Basically, all we've heard is that they know there's an issue.
But if you're a gamer, that's terrible. And I think that's where Intel could come out and say, hey, we're gonna figure this out and we're gonna make you whole. Intel does know there's an issue, so we got that. That's nice.
But this has been months in the making that these CPUs are starting to fall apart. And this could be one of the biggest disasters in tech history, and an entire generation of product just dying. I don't know if it will be everything. The possibility is there. Dude, it's nuts. It's freaking nuts. Okay, Intel really f***ed up. Really bad. This is what Alderon Games says. They said, for Intel's sake, we hope that they recall these CPUs and refund consumers. This post isn't an endorsement of AMD CPUs or any other PC company. Keep in mind that any product can have defects and issues. We just want to let you know where there are crashes coming from and what is going on. Again, this isn't AMD could be in the same situation as Intel, but right now they aren't. And in other games like Warframe, they said that the staff reveals that 14th gen and 13th gen CPUs are responsible for instability issues. i9-13900K takes up a major portion. A specific kind of crash that's happening in this game that seems to be CPU related. If you see of all the CPUs that are making up this percentage, none of these are AMD CPUs. This seems like a specific Intel 13th, 14th gen problem. Specifically, the 13900K, 14900K, which are their higher power processors, which might have an issue or relation to this. Same with the 14900K and the 13900KF. The F and the K, these are basically all the same CPU. So this in total is making up, what is that? But that's probably over 75% of this pie chart here. It does seem to be the higher tier Intel one, so at least an i7 and above. Hopefully, if you're on a lower end Intel 13th or 14th gen CPU, like an i5 or an i3, that it wouldn't be an issue, but I wouldn't put it past it. If this is a degradation problem, those CPUs might also get worse over time. Maybe some of these CPUs in here are AMD CPUs, because this pie chart does go a little bit further, but it's not labeled. So just keep that in mind, but it's not a significant amount. Like, I think it's pretty obvious how much Intel is on here. So if you do have an Intel CPU, like, I hope that you aren't going to be affected, because I mean, man, CPUs are expensive. Computers are expensive, and to just have it fail, especially a new CPU, I mean, you expect this to last for years. And then on Intel's side, I could see why they're staying a little tight-lipped about this whole situation, because if they come out and say something, and if they have to like recall so many CPUs, guys, this is insanely expensive, wildly expensive. They should, if it is an issue, they should be doing it. I'm not like, blue ain't my favorite color. At the same time, I'm a little bit worried for Intel in this whole situation, because Intel don't really have a lot going for them right now. If we look at here, in videocards.com, they've got an article here that I think is actually from Tech Power Up. There was a poll asking, you know, Intel's new thing is the AI chips on their processors. And it asked gamers, not even gamers, would you pay to have AI chips on your CPUs? Would you pay extra to do that? And most people said no. Like 84% of people did not care about these AI chips at all, because when it comes down to it, Intel is banking so much on this. They changed the names of their CPUs to Core Ultra to signify that they have AI on them. AMD even tried to bank on this too. It's like, what do we use AI for? What are we going to use it for? Copilot Plus, so Microsoft can spy on us, or somebody can hack our computer and we lose all of our data to it. Like, I use AI every now and then for stuff that I do, but it's usually just like transcribing some stuff so that I can see text that's in a video. Maybe every now and then I use it in DaVinci Resolve to, you know, use AI to crop out a person in a frame or something like that. Maybe I'm doing it to me right now. That's why I might be in Vegas or something. I don't know what's behind me. I was doing that before these chips existed. I don't know, man. And then Intel has done even sleazier things too. So here's their 13th gen CPUs. Okay, so here's the Newegg listing for the Intel 13700K. You can see it's $286. And then here's the Intel 14700K. These are basically the same CPU, but their 14700K is $370. Whoa, this is like $100 more for like barely any more performance, guys. It's not worth it. And Intel is like kind of min-maxing their profits. This isn't strange to the other ones. 13600K, this is an i5, $230. 14600K, $300, $70 more. And these ones are even more insane. These are the same CPU, guys. You could not tell a difference. They have done some sleazy stuff even with this generation. And what's crazy, they basically released 2 generations that are the same CPU, and then they're having the same issues about degrading or whatever's happening about these processors and behind the scenes. That it starts to make you wonder is like, why the heck would you buy an Intel CPU? I don't even know. Do you really like the color blue? I mean, like, cool, that's awesome that you like the color blue. There's like no reason to buy them. It's like the Intel motherboard support. Okay, so like these 12th, 13th, and 14th gen processors were all on one set of motherboards. They're all compatible with each other, one socket for their motherboards. Compared to AMD, who is still making processors for AM4, the same socket since 2017. They're still making them. Now they have a new generation that is promising support past 2027. And this generation started in 2022. People want to be able to just drop in an upgrade of a new CPU on their motherboard platform. Intel doesn't give you that same kind of upgradability. And in terms of performance, AMD CPUs are so competitive. 7950X is actually topping the chart in Blender, ahead of the 14900K while drawing a little bit less power. It's still drawing a lot of power. Like, AMD is extremely competitive even on the productivity side of things. I don't see a major reason to buy Intel, and you can see that Intel's stock, probably the scariest thing, Intel's SOC actually, their price has gone down. The value of Intel as a company to the public market has gone down over the past 6 months by 26%. Don't really know what Intel has going for them. The only thing I can think of is that Intel is making fabrication plants across the United States right now. They can make processors for other companies or make their own processors. Just talking about AMD, I'm not saying that AMD is the god or the GOAT. Right now, they definitely have the most reliable, the most upgradable, and probably the best value processors on the market right now. AMD is kind of killing it right now, and I don't see a major reason to buy an Intel CPU. I think Intel is in some hot water here, not only because of their trust with consumers, like can you even buy these CPUs and trust them to work into the future? Are they killing themselves? And Intel just lying with their partners and putting blame on them, shifting blame, not giving any word to consumers about what's going on, or even to their partners as well. Like the communication seems pretty weird. Intel as a company right now is just not looking good. Intel's new processors don't look that interesting. Who knows if their new ones are going to have these degradation or whatever issues are going on with the 13th and 14th gen. Hopefully they're not. We can only hope though. You know what I mean? A lot of people didn't want to switch to AMD before because they're like, AMD CPUs aren't stable. But I'm hoping that this could possibly be a software issue on Intel's part, and they could roll out something to fix their CPUs. And they don't have to do a massive recall because there's no way they're actually going to fix the hardware on CPUs. They just have to give people new ones when it comes down to it. It's depressing if like all these CPUs are like broken. But also it's even more depressing if Intel doesn't address the situation, which they've been so tight-lipped on this. They have to know something's going on, and they're probably looking into it very deeply. Let me know after all of this if you're even interested in getting an Intel CPU. Before your Intel CPU crashes when watching this video, peace.